how do you see the future of Belarusian opposition, and what are the next steps for you personally?
So first of all, we really don't like when we are called opposition, because we are the majority of people. We have very small group of regime and the rest of population. And look, we just to keep resistant, sustainable, to be active, we are building structures on the ground. Our workers are preparing for national-wide strike. We have a wide network of volunteers and activists on the ground. We take a lot of efforts to help people on the ground and those who had to flee the country, including media and organizations and businesses. So we don't have, like, you know, concrete steps, because we are dealing with absolutely unpredictable regime. So our task is to stay consistent, and it's not only the situation in Belarus, it's also about European Union, that if you didn't recognize policy of Lukashenko, if you are putting pressure on him, because he became the threat not only to Belarusian people but also to European countries, just stay consistent. And regime has to understand every next step to a threat to security of European countries will be responded with strong answer. So if you didn't recognize Lukashenko, so be consistent in this policy as well. So only step by step we have to create multiple points of pressure on the regime on the one hand, but on the other to help Belarusians to survive this difficult fight. Look, our task as international team is to keep Belarus on agenda. And in Belarus, again, it's constant communication with the people who are on the ground, first of all. We are every day, I'm communicating to different group of people, like workers, volunteers, activists, doctors, teachers, just to understand what's going on, to get information, inside information from regime structures. We also have these connections, and just to go from country to country to explain situation, to update information about about the real position of regime and civil society. So we have clear strategy. We need negotiations to get out of this crisis, release all political prisoners, stop violence, and help new elections. This is our strategy. But how it will reach, we can't say talk about concrete steps. That in a month we will have nationwide strike, because any trigger can happen tomorrow or day after tomorrow, or regime can invent something new towards European countries, and European and democratic countries should respond to these actions. So you can't predict anything.
Would you say Russia is threatening Belarus's sovereignty? After the exercise Zapad, there's some speculations that they may leave parts of their army in Belarusian territory. Do you think there's a risk of the two becoming one state?
The only threat to Belarusian sovereignty is regime. It's regime who just to show their loyalty to Kremlin, because they are supporting him with these Zapad exercises and with money and with political support. He can sell our enterprises or even our sovereignty. Though I really don't believe this might happen, but as I said, regime is unpredictable, irrational, so it could happen. But we always send clear message that Belarusian people will never agree with this. They will fight for independence, for our sovereignty, and in the case of this threat, Belarus will be, the region of, for constant instability,
And what should the rest of the world maybe do to help political prisoners in Belarus, or if they want to be a part and help, like, what's the thing you can do?
So first of all, to raise this question, political prisoners on different events. Like there will be a G20 summit or European Union UN Security Summit. So we should be everywhere on the agenda, because as only regime feels that we are abandoned, they will escalate regime. Regime shouldn't feel impunity for their actions. So on the one hand, as I said, keep pressure, stay consistent. Just on the one hand, on the other, of course, regime seeing this support of democratic countries towards people, they understand that this support will not end. Be more vocal about the situation, and use all the possible organizations, international organizations, to speak about Belarus.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think are the goals of Lukashenko using the flow of migrants towards Lithuania, Poland, and Latvia as a form of hybrid war? What do you think his reasons are for doing that?
He's taken revenge on those countries who are supporting Belarusian civil society, Belarusian movement. And of course it's so disgusting and cruel, but he doesn't have anything to do, just threat neighboring countries. And in this situation, the rest of the world has to be supportive not only to Belarusians, this is extremely important, but also to those countries who are facing this hybrid war, like Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland, first of all, of course. And we countries, of course, should take care about immigrants as well, because they are also hostages of this situation. But I think this chosen strategy of not allowing people come in is working one, because you can't play the rules that Lukashenko initiated, on the one hand, because the responsibility for this lays on regime, first of all. This building walls between our countries is not very good idea, I suppose, because this crisis, migration crisis, will end in some time, I don't know, but the walls will stay for a long, long time. And our countries had never had borders, like physical borders between our countries, and maybe Lukashenko wants to show that, look, it's Europe that is building countries. They separated from us, and I would be cautious about this, though I understand that it's maybe necessary to stop, to physically stop this migration, but it's not the way out of this crisis. We have to treat the problem, but not the symptoms of this problem. And the problem is Lukashenko and his regime.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned before that Lukashenko is showing sympathy for the Kremlin. Do you think Belarus is at risk of becoming more and more dependent on Russia at the moment?
Who is dependent on Russia is Lukashenko and his cronies. I'm sure that with good management in our country, our economic situation would be much, much better, and we wouldn't be the country that only asking for help. And moreover, we are already so dependent on Russia, on trading with us, that the next step of further integration is loss of independency, of sovereignty. And I have talked about the situation with independence in the eyes of Belarusian people.
Mm-hmm. All right. And there's also been some speculation that Russia might establish military bases in Belarus. Wouldn't you say that's a huge risk?
There is such a risk, but it's only because we are dealing with regime that doesn't have long strategy. They are doing everything to threat Europe, to threat Belarusian people. It could be bluffing, it could be just show for Kremlin that, look, we are so loyal to you. But I don't think that it will happen, and this military exercise is up at 21. We have to see if the military forces leave our country at the end of this month, or if they stay. So after this, we could predict something.
All right. And do you have any information what it's like on the ground in Belarus for the movement of Free Belarus?
You know, it's the price for open demonstrations, for you know, for showing that you are against the regime is very high. People can be kidnapped at any moment in their apartments, on the streets, on their walk, and put in jail just for nothing. And people understand this, and this is strategy of Lukashenko to threat everyone, to shut everyone down, up. But the mood of people hasn't changed. People now are so creative. They are looking for ways how to, you know, how to fight secretly, undergroundly. We are mostly like underground movement in Belarus. You know, our cyber partisans, our workers who find the way how to communicate secretly using Telegram channels or other ways. And but this strategy of disobedience, of putting our symbols everywhere to show that we are still here, nothing has disappeared. We still don't trust Lukashenko. We don't want him to be, you know, at the power. So we will resist all the time. And instead of one jailed person to come and continue their job, so I doubt that we can see huge demonstrations on the streets, because you know, regime could kill people, could you know, put in jail more and more. You know, they are escalating violence. So we have to choose strategy that is possible now. And people are angry with this regime more and more. And even those businesses who were with Lukashenko many years, because of sanctions, they understand that they can lose everything, that they don't want to share responsibility for committed crimes of the Lukashenko with him. Now they have to choose if they want to stay with this sinking regime or to do something for new Belarus.
All right. And Lukashenko's regime has sort of isolated itself from the rest of the world, apart from the Kremlin. And I guess you could say the people of Belarus are being held hostage right now. Mm-hmm. You said you don't see any more demonstrations happening, but people are still, the movement is alive.
Of course, movement is alive. And I say, for this year, we haven't weakened. Moreover, we are building structures that have never existed in Belarus before. And those organizations that have been destroyed in Belarus, they are moving to other countries and continue their job, because organization is not about registration, it's about people. And if one sportsman will be in jail, the rest of sportsmen will fight for this person. The same about teachers and doctors and IT specialists. In prison, we have outstanding people. It's not just activists, but people from different spheres. And it will not come down. There is no other solution of this crisis, only new elections, because you know, Lukashenko is illegitimate, and our people want retain their right to choose whom they want. My life has turned upside down, of course, but it was very difficult here. Difficult here because I can't communicate with my husband. The same as thousands of families. I have a very difficult role at the moment. I wasn't prepared for this. I'm not experienced, but I have to communicate on the highest political levels. I have to study a lot. But my everyday is full of pain. full of fear, fear for my life, for life of my, for security of my team, for all the activists who are on the ground and had to flee the country, and especially for those who are in jails. People are harshly tortured. They are humiliated physically and morally every day. There are people who, for example, spent a month or two in jail and have been released under home arrest, or just they are not free, but they are not in jail, and they are telling us about awful things that are happening in jails. So every day you like exhausted with all the news, awful news, but you understand what you are building. You are building new society, and it's taken time, because we have been living for 27 years under regime, and we have to build something diametrically new to this regime. We are working on economic reforms, on educational reforms, on medicine reforms, just to be prepared when the regime is over, and it will. We will be prepared for this, because it shouldn't take too long time to bring the life in Belarus to normality. And we will have to restore our economy. We will have to restore institutions and organizations. And thanks to European Union comprehensive plan for Belarus, I think that it will not take much long time. And we have to bring positive news to Belarus as well, that we are working on something more institutional, for new Belarus, and people understand this. Regime has no future. They don't have anything to offer for Belarusian. Everything they could, they offered during past 27 years, and in the process of their policy, Belarus became one of the poorest countries in Europe. This is the result of 27 years policy of Lukashenko.
All right, thank you. And lastly, maybe there's something you would like to add that you think is important to convey as a message.
So as I'm talking to Latvian media, I really want to say the words of gratitude to Latvians front position, to Mr. Rinkovic and the mayor of Riga. We really feel this support. And Mr. Rinkovic always talk about us on different events. He raises attention to Belarus, and Belarusians feel this support. In this fight, we understand who is friend and who is not. And Latvia, for sure, is our friend.